Welcome to Sizzle Fantasy Sports, the channel with the most sizzling hot fantasy takes and analysis, presented by your host, Gavin.
Rodgers clean pocket, throws the middle to Yancey, Devontae, touchdown, and a dagger!
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today I have my NFL Mock Draft 3.0 for you guys, where I'm going to be exploring yet another scenario for the top of the board here and seeing how that impacts the later picks in the first round and has some guys falling down to some other teams. So before we get started today, I'm not going to waste too much time before we get into things. If you're new around here, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Also, you guys, let me know who you want your team to take in the first round. Let me know the team that you root for and the player you would like to see them taking. And also, if you would have me going a different direction with the player I have your team picking. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and let's get right into the first pick. All right, you guys, so here we are with the first overall pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars. This pick is standard at this point. We've even got him in the team's jersey, for crying out loud. Trevor Lawrence is going to be a Jaguar. This is the easiest pick every year to predict in the draft. He's the top quarterback prospect. The surgery that he had on his shoulder is not a big deal to me. I still expect him to recover fully and be that elite quarterback prospect that we all see him being. So, Trevor Lawrence here at number 1, no questions asked there. Here's the number 2 overall pick. I have the New York Jets, who are actually my second favorite NFL team after the Green Bay Packers. If you can see Randall Cobb on the other side in the backdrop of me here. But the Jets need a pop and pizzazz player here at number 2. They just need some life, kind of revamped and revitalizing that franchise. Justin Fields is just the guy to do that. I think that besides Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields might have the highest quarterback ceiling of anyone in this class. I think maybe my only knock on him is that at times, reading and scanning the field can be a bit of a concern and a troublesome place in the NFL for him. He has had a tendency to lock onto wide receivers and kind of stare guys down. So I do worry with his head coach, Robert Saleh, who I really like. He's also a defensive coordinator, though. I do worry about his translation and who is going to be developing Fields. So I think this is a very real scenario and outcome. Personally, I would rather see Zach Wilson go here, but I've already looked at that in a previous mock draft. So Justin Fields here, number 2 to the Jets. I think this could work out very well for that football team, however. At number 3, I have the Panthers in a trade moving up with the Miami Dolphins. I don't have a particular scenario here or outline the exact picks that are involved in this trade up, but just be aware Miami is getting their compensation for moving backwards to that number 8 pick with Carolina. Obviously, this number 3 pick belonged to Miami because of the Houston Texans. So the Panthers here, they trade up, they select Zach Wilson. They have been fishing around the quarterback market all offseason, and I think that this might not age very well, to be honest, this video, because I kind of see some signs coming together here that the Panthers are kind of clearing out some cap space and preparing that team for a Deshaun Watson trade, however. So I think that Zach Wilson will be a great fit on the board for the Panthers at this spot, though. They're loaded at wide receiver. If they bring Curtis Samuel back, they've got him along with Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. This could be a really great fit here. I think Zach Wilson is a guy who not only has great touch on his passes and really great improvisational ability as a quarterback, but I think he's also a guy who is more of an immediate NFL ready and less need for development type player than a Justin Fields, who has more athletic ability than Zach Wilson does. But I think that as a passer, Zach Wilson at this point and as a pure quarterback might be the better option. So for Carolina here at number 3, I really like moving up and taking a quarterback if they aren't to go out and trade for Deshaun Watson. But if not, we've looked at some other scenarios in our previous mock draft. At number 4 here, I have another trade. I have San Francisco moving up with the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons moving from 4 back to 12. And like I said, we don't outline specific trade details here in these mocks, but just know Atlanta is being perfectly compensated for this draft movement here. So Trey Lance is the quarterback taken off the board here, 4 in a row at the top. The 49ers, look, they love Jimmy Garoppolo, and what they've done with him when he's healthy and on the field is actually quite exceptional. He has done nothing but win for that franchise. However, availability has been an issue for that football team at the quarterback position. Trey Lance is a guy who I think is a bit more of a developmental quarterback prospect. We haven't exactly seen all that much game footage from him because he hasn't had that much playing time as the starter for NDSU. So I think Kyle Shanahan, though, is the guy. He's the offensive mind that could use Trey Lance to his fullest potential, really develop him into that guy the franchise wants at the quarterback position, and maybe you don't even move off Garoppolo right away. You could potentially have Garoppolo stick around there for a while, maybe a season, and use him to help mature Trey Lance and help Shanahan have time to mold him into the guy that he wants him to be. And at the same time, if Garoppolo were to go down to injury, you have yourself a very, very high-level backup to plug in there and a guy who could be the future leader of your franchise. At number 5 here, we have a very obvious pick as well. Penei Sewell is the best lineman on the board right now, and Cincinnati really desperately needs offensive line help to protect Joe Burrow and that Bengals organization's future, to be honest, because Joe Burrow is the brightest light they've had at quarterback in quite some time. Obviously tore up his knee this past season as a rookie after he was on quite the tear. He was throwing for tons and tons of yards because Zach Taylor had him airing it out each and every game. But Penei Sewell has the highest ceiling of any lineman in this draft class. I think that for an organization, like I said, you have to protect your quarterback in the National Football League. Otherwise, your franchise is going to plummet. So Penei Sewell, go out and get Joe Burrow that elite prospect he needs to protect his blind side, and hopefully you can keep him upright and healthy for the duration of their careers. At number 6, we have the Eagles picking my number 2 offensive lineman prospect on the board, Rashawn Slater. I've had Slater actually going ahead of Penei Sewell in some of my mock drafts previously because I think he is actually more NFL ready than Penei Sewell is. Like I said, I think Penei Sewell has the highest ceiling of any lineman in this class, but Rashawn Slater is the most likely to translate off the bat and be instant impact. So Slater, his highlight of his college career was he shut down Chase Young against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Obviously, Slater from Northwestern. So I think where you move Slater into that NFC East with Chase Young in that division, that gives you some nice hope as an Eagles fan to have some added protection, which was an issue for Jalen Hurts moving into this next season. And you also get a guy who you can have be that really solid guy protecting your quarterback for the next 5, 6, who knows how many years. So at number 7 here, Detroit goes out and takes my best linebacker on the board available, Micah Parsons out of Penn State. I think that this is a pick that really helps Detroit, who is in need of some linebacker help, and Micah Parsons is the most elite tier of linebacker in this draft class, in my opinion. So the Lions, I know you guys need quarterback help, but with the other trades I included in this mock draft, I don't think it's wise to sit here and reach on Mac Jones. I don't think that's the answer. I also don't think Jared Goff's the answer for your franchise. So work on bolstering that defense, Let Jared Goff kind of set the tone and help the rest of that team develop. You're probably not going to be in contention the next year or two, but maybe if you can provide a really, really strong defense and bolster that unit, once you insert that next guy into the team, they might be ready to go out and make a run, especially with Aaron Rodgers only getting older at this point. So here at number 8, we've got the Dolphins in that trade where they moved back with the Panthers, going out and selecting Devontae Smith out of Alabama. I think this is a great fit for not only the organization, but their quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa. So Devontae Smith, Tua, they played together at Bama, obviously. Devontae Smith has been a straight baller in his time at the collegiate level. So I really like them taking him here off the board first. I don't think that Devontae Smith is the number 1 wide receiver in this class, but I think he is the best fit for this Dolphins football team. They've got a lot of bigger bodied and larger framed wideouts right now in Preston Williams, who's having some health concerns and the fact that he's been getting banged up and can't stay on the field in these first 2 seasons. And then Devontae Parker. He is obviously probably hit his peak. He's not going to get any better, I wouldn't assume, from this point moving forward. So go out and get yourself a guy who has a really high ceiling, who has played with Tua before, and can really help your franchise quarterback grow into the player that the Dolphins organization hoped he would be, drafting him early on last season. Here at number 9, the Denver Broncos are going to select Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech. I really like this move. Denver, you need a corner really, really bad. You've got the pass rush. You've got the offensive talent in the skill position category. I think Drew Lock might not be your answer, although I think he has a lot of talent. You don't really have a quarterback whisperer or an offensive head coach, so it makes it tougher to develop those project QBs, and I think you might have to go another route. So here, you've got Von Miller, you've got Bradley Chubb on the defensive side of the ball, but you cut A.J. Boye, and you're just really lacking that defensive back help outside of Justin Simmons, and especially in the last few years here since you lost Chris Harris Jr. and Aqib Talib, it's been a pressing need. So Caleb Farley, he is my number one corner on the board, closely followed by Patrick Surtain, who will be going here quite soon. I think Caleb Farley really helps out this football team. He could be a dominant shutdown number one corner in this league, and I think that Denver defense is what they're all about. At number 10, the Dallas Cowboys are going to go out and select Gregory Rousseau out of Miami. Gregory Rousseau is a raw prospect, if we're being real here, but Dallas has DeMarcus Lawrence. That team needs help really bad on the defensive side of the ball, and I think there's a potential here that Rousseau is the best pass rusher in this draft class. He didn't play this season. He sat out due to COVID. But the hope here is that he can kind of kill two birds with one stone by making this draft selection. You need help in the secondary. That is very true. But you can address that in maybe the second or third rounds, maybe free agency. You've got Trayvon Diggs coming back next season. But go out and add to that pass rush. Decrease the time that those corners have to sit back in coverage and actually play the wide receivers. And if you can get to the quarterback and sack him or rush a throw, you're just making it easier on everyone for that defense. So Rousseau here at number 10. For some people, I know he's kind of polarizing. Some think he goes too high in mocks. Other guys think he falls down too far. I think Dallas could be the perfect team. Maybe mold him behind Lawrence and see what he can become in the NFC East. At number 11, the New York Giants select Jamar Chase out of LSU. Chase is my number one wide receiver personally in the mock draft, in the 2021 draft class, rather. But like I said, due to team need and fit and scheme, Devontae Smith went first in this mock. I think Jamar Chase is a perfect fit for the Giants and what they're trying to do. They don't have a true alpha wide receiver one right now. Evan Ingram, who plays tight end, is kind of the best pass-catching weapon in that offense. And he's fine, but he hasn't quite reached his peak that I think the organization hoped for when they selected him in the first round. And Jamar Chase, I think he can really open up this offense. You've got Saquon Barkley coming back next season. Darius Slayton's a nice piece, and so is Sterling Shepard. But I think that getting that true alpha number one guy in obviously the Big Apple, New York, you've got yourself a star here in Jamar Chase, and give Daniel Jones another option and see if he really can become the quarterback that obviously the franchise believed in when they took him in the first round. Year 3, it's time to prove yourself. Jamar Chase kind of takes away the excuses and will really tell the Giants if he is that guy for them. At number 12, the Atlanta Falcons, in the trade which they moved back with San Francisco, select Patrick Surtain out of Alabama. This one, I think, fills a huge positional need for the Falcons roster. You went out and picked A.J. Terrell last season, but he got baked all season long. He struggled quite bad, if we're being real here. And Patrick Surtain is the best defensive back on the board as I see it. So in a division where you've got, like I said, that Carolina Panthers wide receiver core is loaded. You've got the Buccaneers that have a loaded wide receiver core. And Michael Thomas is still with the New Orleans Saints. Having an incompetent secondary in this particular division, the NFC South, is not going to cut it. You need to have as much help back there as possible. I don't think there's quarterback prospects right here on the board that Atlanta would really benefit from, especially still having Matt Ryan. And I think that you might as well try and compete with him if you're picking here at number 12. So go out there and bolster that defense, get some added draft capital by moving back here, and see if you can put the pieces around Ryan, who already has a solid offense, to go out there and make a run for the South this season. At number 13, the Chargers pick Christian Darrisaw, the offensive tackle out of Virginia Tech. I love this pickup. Darrisaw, he is my number 3 tackle on the board in this draft class, but I still think this guy's a monster and really fills a big need. This is kind of the main theme here. We're trying to fill team needs and not go for as many luxury picks as you see in other mock drafts. Darrisaw is a really, really great prospect, and Justin Herbert could use some protection because the skill and talent around him is already quite good in Los Angeles. At number 14, the Minnesota Vikings are going to select Kwity Paye, the edge rusher out of Michigan. I really like Kwity Paye's game. This guy wins with his hands. He's very athletic, and he's versatile. I've seen him win with inside and outside rushing moves, and I think that this is just a guy who's really good at getting to the quarterback. I could easily understand and accept people who have Paye as their number 1 edge rusher in this draft class. And I think that for Minnesota, who really struggled in the secondary with a young group of guys last season, adding Danielle Hunter back after injury and putting Paye on that line can really speed up the quarterback's needed time to get rid of the ball in his hands, and you can really help two levels of your defense by drafting one player here. With the 15th pick, the Pats are going to go out there and pick Jalen Waddle out of Alabama. Jalen Waddle, I actually personally think might be the best wide receiver in this class. I have Jamar Chase ranked as my number one pass catcher in the class right now, but in terms of ceiling and what guys could translate into, Jalen Waddle, the sky's the limit for him. He runs such crisp routes. He loses almost no velocity in and out of his cuts, and he is so incredibly explosive. For a Patriots team that is really, really lacking talent at any skill position, really, to be honest, they've got James White, who's a free agent, and to be honest, that shouldn't even seem like that big of a deal because he's probably the only one leaving there, but the rest of the guys just aren't that good. You've got Edelman coming back off injury potentially, and then N'Keal Harry, who hasn't translated well into the league, and two tight ends you picked last offseason. I just think that these guys, regardless of who's playing quarterback, I don't think you reach for Mac Jones right here. They need someone to throw the ball to. I don't care if it's Stidham. I know they said they're not bringing Newton back, but if they do, he could use Waddle even. So Jalen Waddle helps a lot of things for this offense, and I think that this could be a big-time prospect heading to the league. At number 16, the Arizona Cardinals select Elijah Vera Tucker, offensive lineman out of USC. I love this pick. Elijah Vera Tucker is such a versatile lineman. As a Green Bay Packer fan, I can speak to the value and versatility of these guys like Elijah Vera Tucker, who can play multiple positions and really be plugged in to patch any injury holes on your roster. Green Bay's got Elton Jenkins and Billy Turner, who have played multiple positions all season long, and with some moving pieces this offseason, they might ask Elton Jenkins and Billy Turner to switch their starting positions in training camp next year. So Elijah Vera Tucker is a guy who can play inside or outside at guard or tackle, and I think that really helps this Cardinals offensive line and offensive team as a whole. Kyler Murray could use another guy to help him in pass protection, but they could also use this to improve their run game, obviously. Maybe Kenyon Drake will be back next season. Maybe they'll go to the draft and pick someone. Chase Edmonds is always there still. So all in all, Elijah Vera Tucker helps this team out a lot, I think, and is a very versatile pick at 16. At number 17, the Las Vegas Raiders are taking Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, linebacker out of Notre Dame. I talked about this in my mock draft 1.0. Owusu-Koramoah is the ultimate John Gruden prospect, This guy flies downhill. He's a bit of a raw prospect, but his athletic intangibles and the physicality he plays the game with almost remind me of that kind of Jonathan Abram prototype player. He plays with a physicality and a force that I think just adds to the toughness of this team. And for a team that struggled defensively and needs some run stoppers and guys who can cover, this Owusu-Koramoah, it's a tongue twister, he can do that as well. So I think this adds a lot of versatility and a lot of oomph to this defense, and I think that Gruden and that coaching staff would really love to have this type of player on the roster. At 18, this is one of my favorite picks of the draft, actually. This is the earliest I've had Zaven Collins going, but here at 18, he heads to Miami. With Brian Flores and what that defensive scheme wants to do, Zaven Collins could fit in perfectly. Flores runs a lot of disguise techniques and a lot of pre-snap motion and movement that really confuses offenses. And that's how we see them get a lot of takeaways. We see Brian Flores' unit be very, very solid. And let's be honest, they don't really have a household name on that defense outside of Xavier Howard. Minka Fitzpatrick is gone, but the rest of the guys are kind of just players who really fit that scheme and have bought in and fill their roles quite well. So adding a guy the talent of Zaven Collins to that linebacking core, along with how his talents and his skill set complement what Flores does in a scheme sense, this could be a home run hit for Miami at 18. At 19, I've got the Washington football team going out and taking Kyle Pitts, who fell down the board a little bit in this mock draft, but he's the best offensive weapon available out there. This guy, it's a matter of usage, I think, for how tight ends translate, especially in fantasy, if we want to talk about what the main focus of this channel is, obviously fantasy football. Kyle Pitts is just a guy who can go out there, run crisp routes, have elite athleticism, win in the slot, outside, on the line of scrimmage playing tight end. He can do it all over the field. And Washington targeted Logan Thomas 110 times last season. He's almost 30 years old, and we probably haven't heard his name up to this point in his career. So I think going out there and just upgrading that offensive skill set or the skill set of the personnel they have around whoever the starting quarterback is next season can really help that team that already has an elite defense and needs to start building that offense back up. At number 20, the Chicago Bears are taking Alex Leatherwood out of Alabama. I think Alex Leatherwood is a solid prospect. He is somewhat versatile like some other guys in this draft class. He can play inside or outside, but I think where Chicago really values him at is that right tackle position with Bobby Massey getting up there in age and obviously not being quite the player he once was, and he was never dominant by any stretch. So the team need, I think, is tackle for the Bears here at number 20 outside of quarterback if you want to hit on them in that sense. Obviously, I'm a Packer fan, so I love Mitchell Trubisky, but I think that Leatherwood is the right move here at 20. At 21, the Indianapolis Colts, I have them going out and taking Rashad Bateman out of Minnesota. This is a great move, in my opinion, post-Carson Wentz trade. We had them going with Mac Jones in a previous mock draft, but I think the team need for quarterback is gone now with Carson Wentz. You can bring Jacoby Brissett back if you so please to back up Wentz, but I think Bateman just adds a dynamic to this team that they really need. T.Y. Hilton's hitting free agency this offseason. Michael Pittman in year 2, who knows what he can turn into. But Bateman is one of the best technical players at the wide receiver position coming out of the 2021 class. And I really think he can have an instant impact and be a player who really protects Carson Wentz because of how well he runs routes and how well I expect him to translate immediately to the NFL. So if you guys want to hear more about Rashad Bateman, go check out some of my fantasy videos. But this is a player I am very high on this season. At 22 here, we've got the Tennessee Titans taking Jalen Phillips, the edge rusher out of Miami. He filled in for Rousseau this season when he was opting out due to COVID-19, and Phillips was a mauler in both phases of the game as a pass rusher and a run stopper. Tennessee needs a guy like this who can be inserted in there and almost make up for what they hoped Jadeveon Clowney would be last season. I don't think they'll bring him back because of cap troubles. But Phillips, he's also kind of a boisterous personality. This guy brings energy and enthusiasm to the football field. He is loud, and he really brings, like I said, that energy to the team, and I think the Titans could really use that defensively. Derrick Henry's great. A.J. Brown is solid, and I love watching him play. I've got him on a lot of my fantasy teams, and I like Ryan Tannehill as a perfect fit for that football team. So really the offense is humming in Tennessee. Go out there and help your defense. They struggled last season. Jalen Phillips could be a big-time impact, and they've also got some other young guys there, so I like the fit here at 22. At number 23, the New York Jets I have them taking J.C. Horn, the corner out of South Carolina. The Jets really desperately need help in the secondary, and J.C. Horn is a big and physical man coverage guy. I think that for a Jets unit that was so putrid last season in the back end there, Horn can really make a difference. They went out in this mock draft and selected Justin Fields at number 2. And so I think now it's time to turn to the defense and try and help that unit out because Robert Saleh obviously wants to really emphasize having a strong defense there in New York. So address these skill players and running back positions later on in this draft. Go out and get your best defensive player that you can grab here and with your second pick in the first round. At number 24, Pittsburgh, I have them taking Najee Harris out of Alabama. Najee Harris, it's a really close call for me between him and Travis Etienne. I think Harris is the best fit for Pittsburgh here at 24. Now, there are some moving pieces here. Obviously, the Pouncey twins both retired, and one of them was the starting center for this football team. Alejandro Villanueva is also a free agent at left tackle. So this could be a big issue, and they might go elsewhere if they choose not to re-sign Villanueva. But I think Najee Harris, the Steelers really struggled in the run game last season. And adding a physical back like Najee, who can also be an elite receiver, is really going to bolster this offense. They don't want to be Big Ben dependent in Pittsburgh anymore. So I think Harris could just be a guy who takes over that offense and almost plays Le'Veon Bell-esque, not in his game style and play type, but in the way that he really produces for that football team. At 25 here, I've got the Jacksonville Jaguars selecting Trayvon Merrick, the safety out of TCU. Merrick is a guy for me who I think is an underrated prospect. I think he has really, really great football intangibles, and he's an athlete, but I don't think he is quite as athletic as some other safety prospects we've seen come out in the last few years. However, I think this does fill a need for the Jags. In that secondary, they have a very young defense, and I think Merrick can become a prototype safety who is a really sound tackler and can make plays on the football as well. They've got some young cornerback talent. Obviously, last year they picked C.J. Henderson. And so I think you just kind of continue to develop that defense. You have Josh Allen at pass rusher. You've got Caleb Chase on there as well. Maybe they could go for an interior defensive lineman at the nose tackle or defensive tackle position. But here I've got them going with Merrick. At 26, the Cleveland Browns are selecting Nick Bolton out of Mizzou. I think this is a big team need for the Browns. They need an inside off-ball linebacker and a guy like Nick Bolton who is extremely versatile and can play very well in the pass and run game. I think helps this team on all three levels of defense. They're going to be better against the run and against the pass because he's going to be able to fill those run lanes quicker than their other inside linebackers have been able to, and he is a sound tackler as well. So he can get the Browns into better situations. Less third and shorts, more third and mediums, and even third and longs are going to help the back end and the up front guys get a pass rush going. So Nick Bolton, a guy I think has a great impact right away. At 27, another big team need is being filled here with Kadarius Toney out of Florida heading to the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Ravens really, really need wide receiver help. They don't have a true number one on that team. They invested quite a high pick into Marquise Brown a couple years ago, but he's not a one, let's face it. Tyreek Hill, I think, drew some comparisons on draft day in that draft class, but clearly he never panned out to be that, and Tyreek Hill is so much more from just an alpha standpoint at that wide receiver one position. Brown needs some help. He could be a really nice field stretcher as a wide receiver too, and a guy as elite athletically as Kadarius Toney is could really open up that playbook and help them get back to a dominant run game. I think Toney could potentially help back up defenses, give Lamar Jackson more room to do his work, and give J.K. Dobbins some room to help in the run game as well and get back to that dominant 2019 run game. Because right now, the passing game in Baltimore is not dynamic. It's not very explosive or effective. And that allows defenses to creep up closer and closer to the line of scrimmage. They know it's going to likely be a run play or play action. And so it really limits what the Ravens can do offensively. At number 28, the New Orleans Saints, I've got them taking Javon Holland out of Oregon. Javon Holland is a safety, and I think a guy who could fit in for that Saints team that I think is going to make a lot of defensive roster cuts, including letting Marcus Williams walk at the safety position right now. I think Malcolm Jenkins could even be a cut candidate for that football team. So Holland's a guy who didn't really play the best quarterback competition in college, but what I saw from him on tape, good tackler. He has really great ball skills in the air, and he's a guy who is very athletic and good enough to go up and make plays on the football. So I think if you put Javon Holland back there in that division with very, very strong wide receivers, he might be able to shore up the back end and prevent some of those bigger type plays from occurring in the NFC South. At number 29, my Green Bay Packers select Wyatt Davis, the offensive lineman out of Ohio State. I talked about how Green Bay's got some moving parts on the offensive line. David Bakhtiari might not be healthy for week 1 next season. That's a real possibility. We just cut Rick Wagner, who played right tackle for us and started in the NFC Championship game. So Elton Jenkins might have to move around. Billy Turner might have to move around. And Corey Linsley's a free agent. So there's a chance that we're out a guard if we have to slide Jenkins into center, or just the possibility of so many other starting lineups for the Packers O-line next season. You have to have guys up there up front who are good enough to provide for that run game and protect Aaron Rodgers. So it can never hurt to add line depth here. I want the Packers to pick a receiver so bad, and it would suck to not get one and have that satisfaction, but there's a lot of the top guys gone here at 29. I think it's safer to wait until the second round and address wide receiver with the guys available in this particular mock at the number 29 spot. Number 30, I really like this pick. The Buffalo Bills select Joseph Osai, the edge rusher out of Texas. Osai is a very quick speed rusher. He has a great first step, and he's very explosive. I think that's kind of what Buffalo's missing right now. They've got some aging pass rushers. I really liked Jerry Hughes, but he's getting up there in age. I think that pass rush kind of fell off this season. And we talked about the Bills' defense taking a step back for most of this year. I think that's mainly because the pass rush wasn't quite where we expected it to be at. Joseph Osai is not exactly going to walk in and be a 12-sack guy in year one, but I think he can go in there and get some real pressure on the quarterback, force some earlier throws, and that secondary is really talented. They're going to be able to capitalize off that and really improve that defensive structure as a whole. At number 31 here, the Kansas City Chiefs, I've got them taking Asante Samuel, the cornerback out of FSU. The Chiefs, it's simple. They just need to add help on the defensive side of the football. Bashaud Breeland right now is their number one corner. Obviously, losing Kendall Fuller was a big deal last season. I think you need to insert picks and kind of revamp that secondary. Tyrann Matthews, fantastic. Juan Thornhill played okay. And they've got some other guys back there. But I think it's important to really go out and try and get the best talent available. And that's what Asante Samuel is, in my opinion, here with the guys on the board at 31. So try and help Mahomes out. Don't let him become the next Aaron Rodgers and have to make up for the lack of defense he has on his football team. Go get cheap talent in the draft and help him have a solid, well-rounded football team rather than being dependent on the quarterback position. And at number 32 here, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selected Joe Tryon, the edge out of Washington. Tryon's a new face here on the channel. I haven't had him in a mock draft yet this season, but I think at 32 is the perfect spot to have him go. I draw a lot of similarities and comparisons between him and Shaquille Barrett. Obviously, Shaquille Barrett wasn't a highly coveted pass rusher out of the draft, and he barely played in his time in Denver and really kind of blossomed with Tampa Bay. Tryon isn't a household name yet either, but he's a guy who is a very solid pass rusher. He wins inside and out. He's got great size and speed, and I've even seen him drop back in coverage and be competent there covering running backs in the flats or tight ends on outbreaking routes. So Tryon's a guy here. I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa does address pass rusher here with that last pick in the first round, because I think if you ever want to have a luxury position, pass rush would be it, because you can never address pass rush too many times because of how quick the turnaround can be for your team completely falling off and losing all of that juice up front. That was my NFL Mock Draft 3.0. If you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and check out the Patreon for more exclusive content. The link for that can be found in the description. Thank you guys so much as always for tuning in today, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.